B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. Thank you everybody for joining us. We're going to do a wonderful case of modern halacha and a new topic that we never even talked about, the laws of Kaddish. My own father passed away this year, and I just want to say that one of the most heartwarming things that you connect to the person that you loved and cherished so much is through the Kaddish. Because even though they're not physically here, you're spiritually connected and elevating them. We know that we Persian Jews, HaRav Ovadia talks about this idea. We Persian Jews have a custom. It's the 3 weeks right now that we are mourning the destruction of our temple. And Persian Jews visit the cemetery on the fast day, which is going to be in a couple of Sundays, the worst day of the year for the Jews, the 9th of Av, which both of our temples were destroyed. Many Jews visit their beloved ones, their loved ones that have passed away at the cemetery, at the Bet HaKevarot, the Bet HaChaim. And in Jerusalem, there is a custom to visit on the eve of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and the eve of Rosh Chodesh Elul, before we start Selichot. The question here is, some people have this custom where even though there's not 10 men, they say Kaddish. The question is that appropriate to say at the cemetery? Unfortunately, my father of blessed memory always used to get so upset about this, because people would do this on a constant basis. Say the Kaddish, which is a prayer that sanctifies God's name, that we say in the memory of the deceased people to elevate their soul, without 10 people. And should you answer Amen? So HaRav Ovadia deals with this in volume 6, Teshubah number 5 in Yechah. And he says it's very clear that the bedrock and the foundation of our religion is that any holy prayer, Davar Shebekidusha, needs 10 men. What is the origin? The Gemara in Megillah, the Bavli, Talmud Bavli, 23 Megillah B, Kav Gimel Amud Bet, says that we learn it from the 10 spies, the princes of the 10 tribes, because it says, what does it say in the Torah? It says, I will become holy betoch bnei Israel, amongst the nation of Israel. And when Korach got swallowed in, the instigator of Moshe says, he baldu mitoch ha'edah, run away from inside of that evil congregation. And again, by the Meraglim, it says, Edah. So we learn from there that how many princes said evil gossip about the nation, holy land of Israel? 10. Because Kaleb, like we read in this week's Torah portion in the Haftarah, Pinchas, that Caleb and Yehoshua obviously were staunch supporters of the land of Israel. So since 10 people desecrated the name of God, when we want to sanctify the name of God through prayer, we need 10 men. Now, there's a second I didn't know this, there's a second source, very important source according to the Rabbeinu Tam. The Rabbeinu Bachya brings it, that the Yerushalmi in Berachot chapter 7, halacha 3, says that no, actually we learn it from the 10 brothers of Joseph, which were righteous, because it says, Betoch habaim, amongst the people that came into the land of Israel to look for food during the famine when Joseph was the prime minister. It says Betoch, and it calls them the sons of Israel. So we see that Betoch Bnei Israel, already in the beginning, Genesis, it's telling us is a code name for the 10 tribes of Israel, because obviously Benjamin and Yosef were not part of those 10 brothers of Yosef, because Joseph was already in Egypt. So the Yerushalmi actually learns that this is the actual appropriate source to know that we need 10 men amongst the nation of Israel to sanctify God's name. The Rabbeinu Tam says that this is the real source that he thinks is more appropriate and correct, because why learn from 10 evil people that are causing us during these 3 weeks not to listen to any music and mourn the destruction of the temple? Because God said, you guys cried for no reason, now I'll give you a good reason to cry. Rabbeinu Tam says it's much more appropriate to learn it from the righteous brothers of Yosef, which are the source of all our nation. Now, we just want to bring out something very important, that it's very clear from the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, the Jewish Code of Law, chapter 55, that we can never say Kaddish less than 10 men. And there's no ands, ifs, or buts. There's no exception to that rule. So therefore, very simply, those people that are misguided and go ahead and say Kaddish with only 9 people or 8 people or 5 people or 2 people, at the yard side also, since I was asked this question many times and I myself had to direct my brothers, we know that on the 7th day after the passing, we have to go visit the deceased in his burial spot. And on the 30th day after his passing, and the 11th month, and on the 12th month, all these times, it's a wonderful thing to take. Our custom for thousands of years of the Persian Jews and the Sephardic Jews, for that matter, is we would take 10 people to say Kaddish and say Patach Eliyahu, which is a portion of the Zohar, and they say Kaddish. But you always need to have 10 people. Whoever does it with less than 10 people is mistaken, Rav Ovadia says here. And if you are coerced to be there, you should not answer Amen. Now here's the thing, Rav Ovadia brings in his footnotes. I had one of my students from Israel said that this was a very, very interesting dispute she had with one of her neighbors, and she asked me the halacha. It is true that we should not carry out any commandments, prayers, like the Shema or davening Shacharit, Mincha, or Arvit at the cemetery. Why? Because there's a halacha, it's a very famous and important halacha right in the beginning of the Talmud called Loeg Lerosh, which means we do not learn Torah, we do not say Shema, we do not stick out our sisit, for the Ashkenazim that stick out their sisit in the cemetery. Why? Because we're making fun of the dead people. The dead people, after they pass away, they realize how precious the study of Torah and prayers and the commandments are. Now, when we stick it in their eyes that we're alive and they can't do it, it causes them spiritual pain. So, it's for this reason that the Maharshal and the Shach and the Bach and the Prisha, there's many Ashkenazi poskim that say the same way. The same way you're not allowed to stick out your sisit or do any commandment. So how are we allowed to say Kaddish if there are 10 people? Aren't we hurting their soul? All those poskim actually hold, if you do want to say Kaddish, you have to go 8 feet away from where the person is buried, from his burial spot. Then you could say Kaddish, because then you're in a different area. But Rav Ovadia brings a beautiful idea here that says, no, it is true that your personal prayers between you and God, like you want to put on tefillin or daven your Shacharit, Mincha, Arvit, do it in the synagogue, like I'm sitting in right now. It's nicht appropriate. It's not appropriate to do it on top of a dead person because they feel inferior and sad that they don't have the opportunity, that platinum and golden and diamond opportunity to serve God. But the Kaddish is said to elevate them. You're there to support them. So Rav Ovadia says a beautiful logical idea that the Kaddish, you do not have to walk away 8 feet, 4 amot. Rather, since you're doing it to elevate the soul of not only that person, if you want to cover all bases, say all the people here, the Kaddish I say, I want their souls to be elevated. You're not, God forbid, making them feel inferior. Actually, you're there to support them. Now, why and how was it ever possible for people to start making such a fundamental mistake and start saying Kaddish with less than 10 people? So Rav Ovadia brings a fascinating thing here that says that we know the Gemara in Ketubot, Bavli 103, says that the person that wrote the Talmud, the Mishnah, even after he passed away, he used to come home and say Kiddush Friday night, Vayachulu, for his family, because his wife and family missed him a lot. So the Rabbeinu Yehuda Achasin in Sefer Chasidim brings that when from the other world, heaven, the Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi would come back on the physical world, he would actually wear Shabbat clothing. He wouldn't be like a ghost. He would function like... So, because we know that the righteous, even when they pass away, they're like alive. It's the people that have no spiritual connection that are like walking zombies. And their soul is basically dead inside of them. The people that are in the, like my Rebbe says, the people that are, the righteous people that are in the cemetery are really alive and just sleeping. The people that don't care about God and the Torah, those people are unfortunately dead. The walking zombie dead. But the question that Rabbi Yehuda says is that don't think that when Rebbe would come from the other world down, he was a ghost, and a ghost of a soul of a person that has no body would not be eligible to absolve you of your duty to say Kiddush. Rather, since he was a Sadiq, in his death he was like alive. So some people argue that, hey, if I only have 9 people and I'm at the praying for the something from God, and the Sadiq is the 10th person, so since Sadiqim during their death, they're like alive, I could count actually the soul of the Sadiq, which is buried right there, as the 10th person. First of all, that's absolutely wrong. There's no source for such a thing. And we don't learn halacha from stories of the Talmud. Like the Eshkol says, and the Yerushalmi says, and the Rashba says. And also, Rav Ovadia, in defense of the Sefer Hasidim, says that there's a big difference. Rabbeinu Yehuda, which wrote the Talmud, when he would come to the physical world, he would become alive again, Rav Ovadia speaks. It's like Techiyat HaMetim. He would act and talk and walk like a normal human being. That was an extraordinary credit and opportunity God gave him. But if he would have came like a ghostly figure, he would not able to be absolve other people from their duty. So, therefore, such wild ideas are totally unacceptable. And also, I just wanted to say parenthetically here, since it's a fascinating thing, that if you are a Kabbalist and you are in a desperate need of a minyan, obviously, I just want to say that a family that is going through the emotional trials and tribulations of losing a lost one, it's such a wonderful kindness to accompany them to if you're a good friend and good neighbor, accompany them on the 7th day, on the 30th day, on the yard side of the passing, for them to say a valid Kaddish, that is wonderful. But if you're a Kabbalist and you know how to make a golem, which is like a body of a human without any soul, that won't help you, because the Chacham Sevi, the great rabbi of Amsterdam, around 500 years ago, says very clearly, halachically, if you can create from dust and say Kabbalistic names of God, and you could create technically a body, that person would not have the status of a Jew, and most definitely would not have a status even of a human, because it has no soul, or just more like a robotic thing, and will not count towards your minyan. Something very important also to understand is that appropriate minyan, the 10 people should be Shomer Shabbat. The 10 people should most definitely be Jewish. Now, on a side note here, Rav Ovadia brings the Khatam Sofer, which says that, how about Eliyahu the prophet? I just want to say something here for the record. There are people alive today that have daily or weekly study with our great prophet Eliyahu, that angelic figure. If you become so refined and holy and godly and priestly, you can have his soul come from the other world and tell you secrets and divulge what's going on in the heavenly court. Now, the Khatam Sofer, Fasting Khatam Sofer, if you have time to look it up, volume 6 in his Teshuvot, Siman 98, I apologize, says that when Eliyahu comes as a physical human being to learn Torah with Tzaddikim, then he actually can be added as the 10th person. Because, again, he comes sometimes in the form of an Arab, he becomes disguised, but if he's physically, you could touch and feel him, and he's the appearance of a human being, then he is counted as the 10th. But when he's at a bris, and you want to say you have 9 people at a bris, at a Brit Milah, the most holy of Jewish ceremonies, you cannot say Kaddish and count Eliyahu. Because again, the same idea, if Eliyahu is in the form of an angel, a ghostly like figure, there's no way. So same way, even if you're at the cave of a Sadiq, and I would be doing you a disservice. It's true that many, many, many holy people in the land of Israel do go to the holy graves of the righteous on the eve of Nisan. My own cousin took me 2 weeks before Passover, before the Rosh Chodesh of Nisan, and on the Rosh Chodesh of Elul. But the Ben Ish Chai says 2 important things. God forbid, we're not Catholic. We do not pray to the soul of the righteous person. It's for this reason that God never wanted Moshe Rabbeinu's burial to be known altogether. But even if you go to Rabbi Akiva or many, many unlimited righteous people we have, you have to have 2 methods. Either you pray to God that since you're trying to emulate and honor this righteous person, in his merit, God should answer your prayers. Most definitely, we're not praying to the person because there's only one God. We don't even pray to angels. We have a direct connection to God. And the second method you can use is very simply ask the soul of the righteous person to be your lawyer to go to God and have your heart's desires fulfilled. But it all begins and ends with God. We don't pray to the soul of the righteous person. This is a very fundamental thing to know, because we are a monotheistic religion and we have tremendous respect for all our saintly and holy men, but we never pray to them as a deity or like the pagan religions. Now, just to finally wrap it up, it is very clear that if you do end up seeing your second cousin or neighbor or friend that has not listened to this class, is not familiar, this tradition of saying Kaddish at a cemetery without 10 people is absolutely wrong. And so therefore, we should, living in a time where there's so much wonderful knowledge that's based, we have that Prince of Torah, HaRav Ovadia, that is so wonderful. You know, we hear so much stuff that's like hot air. Now, I don't want to put down anybody's custom, but some customs, Gehinom and Minhag, have the same word. So those customs that are valid, by all means, we should hold on to them. Like saying Patach Eliyahu at the gravesite. But this custom of saying Kaddish without 10 people is absolutely wrong. Potentially, God forbid, it could make the soul of the person you're doing more harm than good. And may God bless the soul of all the deceased. And us as a community should support each other. And an ounce of preparation is worth a world of wisdom. The prudent person, now that he knows that he needs 10 people to say Kaddish, he would organize it and take the 10 people. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe.